SCP-087, the Dark Stairway, is one of the creepiest SCPs in the Wiki. In an attempt to find out more about it, the Foundation organized 4 exploring missions. However, in 087's Wiki article, only 3 of the exploring logs remain, and the 4th one is expunged. So what happened in the 4th exploration log, and what is at the bottom of SCP-087? In this SCP Exploration episode, we try to answer these questions. Before we start talking about the missing exploration log, let's quickly summarize all the documents in its Wiki article. The first log is relatively uneventful. The Foundation sends a D-Class down the stairway, and after some time, the famous floating face, called SCP-087-1, appears, scares the D-Class, and the subject runs back to the entrance. The second log is where things get more interesting. This is because the D-Class discovers a gouge in the concrete wall, approximately 20 inches or 50 centimeters long and 4 inches or about 10 centimeters wide. And this gouge appears on the exact same flight where the previous explorer encountered the face during the first exploration. Also, the first step down from the landing next to the gouge is smashed into rubble. Secondly, after this inevitable SCP-087-1 encounter, the subject falls unconscious while running away. And as the D-Class is unconscious, the sound of a rapid heartbeat, inconsistent with a human heartbeat, and a low cracking noise are heard. Seconds later, the subject revives, and the heartbeat and cracking cease. And finally, we come to the third log. The first notable detail is the fact that some sort of liquid is present on the exact same landing where the previous test subject collapsed. The liquid is described as sticky, smelling of rusted metal and pee. The second notable detail is the fact that further down, a hole in the ground is to be seen, approximately 40 inches or 1 meter in diameter. The test subject shines a flashlight down, revealing only blackness. Seconds later, a light of an indeterminate distance down the hole flicks on and then back off. Thirdly, when SCP-087-1 is inevitably encountered, this time the face appears behind the D-Class, forcing the victim to run down rather than up. And lastly, during the D-Class's panicked descent, the sounds of the crying girl increased in volume, indicating that the source was closer. Alright, this is pretty much everything we can extract from the exploration logs. Now let's see what we can learn about SCP-087 from all this. To start things off, the fact that the distressed crying seems to descend as the subject moves downwards indicates that 087-1 uses these sounds to lure the subject down. Also, we notice that the creature inside SCP-087 has immense physical capabilities, given that it created a gouge in the wall and reduced a set of stairs to rubble. Also, the gouge appears to be very smooth, meaning that the creature probably has appendages with claws. And obviously, the face that all explorers encountered couldn't have caused such damage. This leaves us with a few possibilities. The first one is that a separate physical creature damaged the concrete stairs and produced the crying sounds. The second one is that the 087-1 face is only a part of the entire monster, and the rest of its body is either invisible, or the creature can choose whether to conceal it or not, and that the same creature anomalously creates the sounds of the crying girl. And thirdly, it is possible that SCP-087 is some metaphysical entity that can telekinetically damage whatever parts of the staircase it wants to, and can also materialize the face we are all familiar with and produce the sounds. But we'll need more information in order to determine which possibility is the real one. Secondly, the smelly liquid that was discovered right where the previous explorer was unconscious implies that the creature secreted it while doing something to the D-Class, possibly trying to consume him or explore his composition, before the subject woke up and ran away. And we also need to mention the weird, non-human heartbeat that was present while the D-Class was unconscious. This pretty much debunks the theory that 087 is a metaphysical entity that telekinetically toys with its victims, and consolidates the idea that there must be a physical manifestation of SCP-087-1. Thirdly, we need to mention the hole in the ground and the light that shined below. It is possible that this hole leads to the bottom of the staircase, where 087-1's lair could be, but it is also possible that this is some sort of trap, given the fact that the D-Class almost fell inside. And lastly, we notice that during the third exploration, the face appears behind the victim for the first time, forcing the victim to run downwards instead of up. This implies that the first two explorations may have been the entity's attempts to figure out the best methods of capturing targets. It would have learned that as soon as it is seen, the target would retreat to the surface. To overcome this, it decided to trap the target by moving behind it, cutting off its escape and forcing it further down. And of course, we need to mention the fact that as the explorer was running downwards, the sound of the crying girl was getting closer, meaning that the D-Class could have been close to the bottom. To sum it up, it is clear that 087-1 was examining the people sent inside. It may have gathered some information from the procedure that was done on the second explorer, which resulted in the foul liquid, but was unable to complete whatever it wanted to do when the person woke up and fled. Well, we learn quite a lot from analyzing all the exploration logs, and even though the missing log is expunged, there is some information left over that we can start speculating with. So without further ado, let's talk about the fourth log. Let's begin with everything we know about this log from 087's file. It is stated that due to the results of the fourth test, no personnel are to enter SCP-087, meaning that whatever happened must have been so horrible that the Foundation decided to permanently stop anyone from entering it again. And secondly, after the fourth test, members of the building in which 087 is situated reported hearing knocking sounds coming from the interior, and after the door was fitted with thick industrial padding, all reports of knocking ceased. And unfortunately, this is everything we can extract from 087's Wiki file. So what does this all mean? Firstly, let's begin with the knocking. We have two possibilities. The first one is that the D-Class survived the encounter with 087-1 and returned to the entrance, only to find that it was sealed shut and began knocking on the door as a signal to open the door. However, as we saw in the third exploration log, 087-1 got smarter and started attacking the victims from behind. Not to mention that the fourth test was the deepest, so it is unlikely that the D-Class went around 087-1 and ran all the way back to the entrance, so all in all, not that likely. The second scenario is that the D-Class was killed and that 087-1 walked up to the door and began knocking, so as to trick the Foundation to open the door. And based on all information we revealed about SCP-087-1's behavior, we see that the second scenario is much more likely. Secondly, let's explore why the door was sealed after the experiment. It is clear that whatever the D-Class encountered was horrific, so much that the Foundation decided to seal 087 forever. But what could this be? Well, as stated in the Wiki article, all missions were live-streamed, so whatever the D-Class saw, the SCP personnel saw as well. And if we assume that the D-Class died and that the knocking was caused by 087-1, and if we assume that the creature has a body, which as we saw is the most likely scenario, then the D-Class probably saw the creature's full bodily manifestation. The Explorer was likely killed by the monster, which now knew enough about its visitors to figure out where they're coming from and how they exit. 087-1 likely started ascending the stairs rapidly, aiming to escape, which scared the SCP personnel and forced them to seal the exit. And the Foundation likely redacted the information so organizations like the Chaos Insurgency couldn't find out about it and set it free. And finally, let's see if the D-Class reached the bottom of the stairway. First off, given the outcome of the third exploration, it is likely that 087-1 scared the D-Class from behind once again, forcing the victim to run downwards. And we know that when someone encounters the face, they immediately enter a state of permanent panic and run without stopping. This means that the only two things that could have forced the D-Class to stop running would be if he or she encountered the bottom of the stairway, or if 087-1 teleported in front of the Explorer, which is also possible. The only reason this didn't happen during the third test was because the D-Class tripped and fell. So this time around, the D-Class must have been shocked to find out that he or she is trapped at the bottom with 087-1, with no escape. At this point, the face probably revealed its true physical form and attacked the victim, which led to the ending we discussed earlier. But even though we took everything there is to know about 087-1 into consideration, we are still speculating. But what if the fourth exploration log was hidden somewhere on the internet, and we could compare our assumptions with what was actually written? In 087's file, there are no links that lead to the missing log, but if we look around Reddit, we see a user that claims to have saved the fourth log before it was expunged from the wiki. The file begins in ordinary fashion, with the D-Class noticing the face behind him and beginning to run downwards. The victim runs for hours, and the audio of the child gets louder and louder, until the D-Class freezes, seeing 087-1's full body in front of him. The creature is said to be around 7 feet tall, with sharp fingers extending a few feet from its large hands. Its arms reach to its knees, dragging its fingers on the ground. The video feed becomes distorted, but from what is gathered, 087-1 wraps the D-Class in his fingers and stabs the Explorer. Sounds of bursting organs and crunching bones are also heard. So we see that even though this exploration log is in a paste bin, posted by some person on Reddit, and as such can very well be a fake, it does appear consistent with our speculations. So to sum it up, 087-1 turns out to be a physical creature that anomalously conceals its body for some reason. During all exploration logs, we notice how the creature learns how to better trap its victims. 087-1 enjoys luring the D-Class as deep as possible and tarring them before attacking. It is not certain whether the stairway has an end, but based on the fact that the audio of the crying girl got very loud at the end of the third test, there probably is. If a bottom exists, then it's probably where 087-1's lair is located, and where the monster dragged the victim of the third exploration. As such, the place is probably full of the same foul liquid that was discovered during the third test. We don't think that a little girl would be situated at the bottom, because the crying sounds are likely anomalous in nature and caused by 087-1. It is also commonly believed that the beginning of a massive cave, one that is deeper than the stairway itself, sits at the bottom, and this idea is supported by the deep hole that was discovered during the third test. It is also possible that a portal leading to an alternate reality sits at the bottom, where 087-1 originally came from, but once again, these are just speculations. In the end, we can't say for certain what's at the bottom of SCP-087, because the last exploration log doesn't reveal any relevant information that would help us uncover the answer. So we see that SCP-087 definitely lives up to the high expectations set by the first 3 logs, which is why the Foundation sealed the stairway, because nobody would want to encounter this immensely creepy creature in public. This concludes our video about SCP-087. So what do you think? Does the mysterious face also have a body, or is it a metaphysical entity? And did the D-Class reach the bottom? Let us know in the comments below. Please make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy this type of content, as we have many more interesting SCP videos coming up. And as always, we'll see you in the next video.